WEFTEC program. We thank our sponsors, Gauge 3D, who are experts in creating technical animations that transform complexity into clarity. I am Susan Merther, and I'm the director of the program for the Federation at WEFTEC, and I welcome you to this. The webcast is intended for exhibitors, but it's useful to anyone wishing to understand how to get on the WEFTEC program. WEF not only welcomes exhibitors, but we've been actively working to bring the program and exhibits closer together. First way we've been doing that is putting sessions on the exhibit floor to both increase traffic and to encourage discussions with exhibitors before, during, and after the sessions. We've also added a late-breaking possibility for exhibitors to participate in the exhibitor showcase. We've been adding mobile sessions where we take exhibitors around to the booths, and I'll explain those in a minute. We're also communicating with committees the importance of including exhibitors. And in talking with exhibitors, there's lots of confusion on how to get on the program. As the program evolves, it may grow. Focused as you should be on everything associated with that, might miss an opportunity to get in front of customers in a different way. This webinar will explain the different aspects of the program, explain how they're important and an opportunity for you, and show you what you need to do to get on the program with very concrete steps and ideas. We suggest that you involve both your technical people and your marketing people in deciding how to be involved at WEFTEC. Often the booth contact is related more to marketing, but the content of this webcast is very relevant to your technical people, and we suggest that you pass this information on to them. The bulk of this webcast will be delivered by Chibi Alloway, who is chair of the Facility Operations and Maintenance track of the Program Committee. And Chibi's unique perspective includes both many years as an exhibitor, but also many years on the Program Committee selecting abstracts. So this unique combination will help you understand and be able to take advantage of all that WEFTEC has to offer for you. And the benefits of the program, we'd like to talk about a few of those just to make sure that you understand what we see as the benefits for exhibitors being on the program at WEFTEC. First, it gives you added exposure to key audiences. The full conference attendees are your most desirable audience regarding their buying authority. It also changes how you're seen and allows your expertise to be recognized. You aren't seen as selling as much as you are seen as the expert on that subject matter, which leads people to value your opinion and seek you out when they have a need that you might fill. It also helps you all contribute to the profession. Part of WEF's mission is about educating people, and when you spend your valuable resources helping to educate the profession, you become a larger connection to the profession. One of the last point, moving innovation, is very important in WEF's new strategic direction. Having more presentations from the product and service providers allows conversations to take place that can move innovation and creative solutions forward at WEFTEC and therefore in the industry. There are several different ways to get on the program, and I mentioned that there's confusion, so we thought there might be time to go through each of those with you now. And what we're going to talk about is basically what, where, how they're selected, the timing of them, and the requirements of those very briefly. First, what we call the regular abstracts. This is the majority of the program, and it's held in the technical session rooms for the majority of them, with a few of them on the exhibit floor. These are reviewed by the Program Committee by typically as many as 12 reviewers for each of the abstracts, so that they are reviewed by the technical experts most relevant. It's also known for very high quality, and we accept 50% or less of the submissions in the regular abstracts. The focus in the regular abstracts is more on the technical information and education, and it is not a sales pitch. It does require a manuscript for the proceedings. The next way is the exhibitor showcase sessions. And these are shorter sessions that can include product information and more sales information, and really it's a mix of technical and educational with some sales pitch. And they're held on the exhibit floor. We tried it for the first time this past WEFTEC in 2012, and while we're still analyzing all the details and the successes, it seemed to be very well received by the attendees and by the exhibitors participating. And those abstracts are selected by a few people from the program committee and also the manufacturers and representatives committee. And it's a pass-fail type of criteria, but quality is still the benchmark. The timing of these sessions is that we've opened them later than the regular abstracts to really coincide more for the timing of the companies. Once the decision's made to come to WEFTEC, payments are made, and then typically we have a lot of people that contact us and would like to get on the program at that point, so we're trying to accommodate that to the best that we can. In these sessions, people are encouraged to do papers for the proceedings, but it's not required. There's also session proposals, which is part of the regular program, but they're coordinated whole sessions that are put together by a combination of the program committee and technical committees. It's open to others, but there is a very strong relation to the technical committees. And we've been strongly encouraging participation by exhibitors in those sessions, but the key to that is to be involved in the related technical committee and also the program committee. And for session proposals, they are required to have proceedings unless they justify it otherwise ahead of time. And then the workshops are another way that are very hands-on, focused on a narrow topic, and they're focused very much on providing relevant information, technical, educational, on a narrow topic so that you can get continuing education credits. And again, they're strongly related to the technical committees, and they're reviewed by a very large subcommittee of the program committee that is made up of representatives from the technical committees. It's due very early. This year it was due November 6th. But we encourage participation by exhibitors, and we sent a note to all the technical committees to make sure that they were considering using exhibitors wherever they could in the workshops that they were proposing for WEFTEC 2013. And for workshops, detailed handouts are required, and it does take a considerable amount of time to do those. In the mobile sessions, those are a new way we've been trying to use exhibitors to give technical presentations related to a narrow topic, but really done in their booth. So the way we've done that, we take people from booth to booth rather than asking exhibitors to leave the booth and come upstairs to the session rooms. We started it in 2011 with one session focused on fundamentals for public officials that went very well. We expanded that and added technical topics in 2012, and we did more of them. For instance, this year we did trenchless technology, solids handling, and particularly thickening and dewatering, laboratory field testing equipment, and we also repeated the public officials fundamentals. And for these, no papers are required, but participants are encouraged to put a couple of pages of sales literature or other information together to hand out to attendees. And the due dates for these you'll see on this slide. It looks like they're out of order, but I put them in priority order for you, where you have the most opportunity this year, but we want you to be aware of the things so that you can be aware of our normal timing of things. And for the program, the way it's put together, due dates are very important. And because we review abstracts and involve about 200 people to do so, we are not able to accommodate late submissions. And all of these dates are communicated ahead of time, particularly for the regular abstracts and session proposals. So the way the committee sees it is there isn't any reason that people can't get those done on time. And they also see it as an indicator of quality. We're in the process of determining how to select mobile sessions, and it will include an expression of interest and a description of what products and services you bring to WEFTEC so that we can narrow down who to visit. We're also working on a list of topics for those and the exhibitor showcase so that we have a rotating schedule of topics and everyone can understand what it is we're looking for. And for both the exhibitor showcase and the mobile sessions, this last year we had that open in June and July. So we'll be communicating that with all of you as we set up the schedule for those in the next month. And you'll see those in an e-blast from Stephanie Walter and the other groups in the exhibits. We often get questions about how abstracts are reviewed, and I mentioned who's doing it in some of the previous slides, but now I just want to go over how they're reviewed and what they're reviewed for. The technical program is very well known for the high quality of the presentations, and all that starts with the quality of the abstracts. It's very important to follow the guidelines because it's an indicator of the person's ability to follow other guidelines, but more importantly, it allows the abstracts to be fairly compared with each other so that there's enough information to judge the project. The criteria that we use across all different types of reviews are the same, so I wanted to go through those with you briefly. Applicability. Basically, we want to understand, is the project transferable and usable at other facilities or situations? We also want to have the demonstrated results and conclusions. We really want to hear the lessons learned. And of course, that depends on the type of abstract, so that's applied a little bit differently. For example, a planning abstract will have a different demonstrated results than, say, an abstract with a pilot plant or a construction of a plant. So those are all different, but what we're looking for is what are the lessons learned. The consequences of what the project is should be well explained as well, whether they're intended, unintended, environmental, economic, social, and so on. And we learn as much from the negative, so you're encouraged to say what didn't work and why. The relevance of the project is equally important as well. It's basically the appeal to the audience. How relevant is this to the audience that comes to WEFTEC or that we're trying to attract to WEFTEC? And that includes both new information, new technologies, but it also includes fundamentals, which are key to the quality of the program at WEFTEC. Also on the content, the quality of the abstract and the ability to say what you need to is an indicator of the final outcome for both the presentation as well as the paper. So it's very important to make sure that what you're presenting is quality. When we talk about how to write a good abstract, basically an abstract is a self-contained document that shows somebody what you're talking about. It shouldn't have any attached sales literature, but it should be self-contained. It should be powerful to get the point across and describe the larger body of work in a succinct way. And when we talk about how long, succinct, what does that mean? And a paragraph is too short, and the ideal is between 2 and 5 pages. And the longer it is, the more graphics you should also include. And how do you write it? We get a lot of questions about how to do that, so we've developed a question and answer format to help guide you. And if you answer all of these questions, you'll have a great abstract. So I'll turn it over to Chibi Alloway, who will go over each of those elements with you.
Hello. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Good. The miracles of science and audiovisual. Real quickly, just to review what Susan just said, 1 to 3 pages for an abstract without graphs is probably a pretty good length. Unless you're extremely concise, 1's probably a little too short for the exhibitors. Again, the exhibitors get a bit of leadway in their ability to supply the abstracts. So 1 to 3 is good. If you have graphs, which we'll talk about in just a minute, 3 to 6 is probably not a bad number to be thinking about. So with that, let's launch into the next slide, if you would, Lauren. Thank you. So as you, I'll talk at the end, but there is on the website, there's actually a location that you can click on and get an outline for exhibitor abstract preparation help guide, of which my slides will closely follow. So as I walk through it, after we get off, if you haven't had a chance, go on that website location, and you'll be able to actually see the actual questionnaire that we put together. And again, as Susan said, what we've tried to do is to lay out the abstract preparation much like Jeopardy, in that in the form of a question. We've given you forms of questions. Once you answer all the questions, then you build paragraphs. So I strongly suggest just go through and answer each question you can as completely, and then after you get it done, the beauty of Word, right? Cut and paste into a paragraph, a series of paragraphs, with each paragraph being one section, the first one being introduction. You know, you really want something pretty catchy. Think of yourself, if you were reading an abstract for the first time, the things you'd be wondering are, is it cheaper? Does it have better removal rates? What's the, you know, the neck grabbing or the really aha moment that you came across, that you want to come across, that really not only allows you to gain greater interest to read, but also, most importantly, remember, this is the platform for a presentation. So if you have something that's really catchy, something that really grabs the eye, the presentation in the eyes of the reviewer will be very, very strong, and they'll want you to be the presenter, and they'll score you higher, and you'll have a much higher success of actually getting to the podium, if you will. Also, look at uniqueness, and if it's a unique technology, a brand new technology that you want to try to show folks that you've just learned about or that you're trying to push from the standpoint of a company, understand that new technologies have a much higher hurdle rate to get acceptance, as we all know in our industry. So make sure as you have a new technology versus a current technology that maybe you're just leveraging a new skill from, the new technology will take more time, will take more explanation, so be careful attention to the detail that you put into that introduction to really, again, it's the first time you're showing your idea to somebody. Short, catchy phrases is very, very important. Next slide. And then most importantly, the problem statement. And this really is, you really need to give depth and importance to your problem. In other words, it should be a problem that as I read it, I immediately say, whoa, yeah, if I could solve that, that would really help me. It shouldn't be something, oh, that's interesting, I never thought about that as a problem. The latter being not so catchy, not so grabbing. So as you can lay out as bullets, I'm not going to read those for you, you can see those yourself, but you really need to be able to stress the importance of the problem and then immediately go into a hypothesis. In other words, I got this great problem, everybody's got it, and by the way, my hypothesis or my solution, which I'm going to talk about, is X. So in other words, strong problem, something that everybody has, and then a very strong series of statements that says you have the answer, and if you read on and you let me present, I'm going to explain that to you. Eye-catching really draws me into the solution, the problem that you're trying to solve. This problem statement also starts what I'll call a journey or your story. Just think, as you write an abstract, think about just telling the story. Again, don't worry so much about putting paragraphs together and going through and wordsmithing this. Start it from the beginning with just answering easy questions, trying to use compelling stories. And again, the second pass through, you can start to manipulate and mold your story. But I think the hardest part most people have, including myself, is getting down the original thoughts. Once you get down the original thoughts, the writing actually goes fairly easily. It's that first step, that writer's block, as they call it. So this problem statement is really important to get a really strong problem on the table so you can talk about it, of how you're going to solve it. The next slide, though, goes into your approach. In other words, after you have the problem and you have a theory, the real meat and potatoes is how did you go about proving your solution? How did you go about your experiment? What details did you put into that process? Was it very elaborate? What did you measure? What things did you control? Those are really, really important from a scientific standpoint. Oftentimes, the equipment folks will skim over this because they know so much about the products. Oftentimes, we see people that have been selling a specific for a company or for a certain piece of equipment for maybe 2 or 3 years. And so for them, a lot of the attributes for that technology or for the problem-solving aspects of that technology are like, yeah, I know that. Again, you should explain those in great detail. Don't be afraid to really get into the details of something that you know so well. You're trying to convey that knowledge, and in fact, it's actually a very powerful thing because you come across as an expert that way, because you are an expert. So make sure you take the time to lay out your approach. Don't make assumptions that other people know what you know. They don't. Please write it down. Most importantly also is cost implications. Oftentimes in our industry, cost is king. And so make sure that you give real-life examples and real cost and state what your cost assumptions are. If you're going to save $50,000 and it involves the price of power, make sure you include the unit cost of power, 6 cents, 7 cents, whatever it is. So look for those details. Make sure the approach is really where you get into the nuts and bolts of problem solving, but most importantly, this is the meat where as a reviewer I'm looking to see, did this person put together this in a half-baked, or did they really take a global view and really narrow down into those small details that make good research or good evaluations worth their weight in gold. Next slide. So the results from that are really the output, and it's that if you have a very detailed approach, you will get a lot of detailed data. You will get a lot of information. In other words, data feeding information. And I suggest when you get the results, the first thing you do is do graphs. Do tables and graphs. Graphs are visual indications of trends and that informational transfer. I always do my trending first before I write anything. And it should go that way. In other words, you should look at a graph and understand what's going on. Maybe something went up when it shouldn't have gone down. Why was that? That kind of thought cycle will begin. And once you get all your graphs done, there could be 3 or 4, and there's some you might not even include in the paper, but they help you they help in your own mind illustrate what happened, why it happened, and what should have happened. And that really is the context for this results section. You need to show the detail to prove that problem statement and that original hypothesis that you had. There may be things that you didn't prove. You should highlight those. As we all know, oftentimes great investigations come forth from things that you thought you were going to see, but you didn't see. And so showing what I saw and what I don't see is equally as important to understand, not only for yourself, but as an investigator, I do want to see what somebody else has looked at, and if they've missed something, there may be a reason that I think that I can do a similar experiment or a similar study and come up with a little bit different results just because of my either problem set that I created or maybe just the way I approached or laid the experiment or the trial, if you will, out. Again, removal rates, operational time, any of that detail is really, really important. Again, for 2 reasons. One, it really does backstop your hypothesis and your solution. But more importantly, it also shows that level of detail. You see a lot of that detail in there. I'm thinking that this person that went through it really does know their subject, and they're going to be a very, very good speaker to convey that at WEFTEC. And then last but not least, the conclusions, which is the next slide. This is where I always tell people to go back to the first slide. Go back to that introduction. What did you say you wanted to accomplish? What did you say your problem was? What did you say your hypothesis was? And it's really okay to restate the introduction with what you actually found. In other words, go back and say, I thought I was going to prove this. I actually proved this plus something else. In other words, go back to the beginning, relay out all those expectations that you kind of put forth to me as a reader that I'm going to understand, and then tell me, again, in sentences, what actually the research or the trial proved or showed, and maybe some holes within that. Again, holes are fine. Things that you need to finish up on your work, that's okay. This is where you want to talk about it. So anything unexpected or just something that you maybe didn't see, excellent. Now, obviously, the home run is you not only found something, but it has a larger implication, or there's a greater point of applying this to even more potential problems and or creating a larger solution value. All that's really good. Oftentimes, that doesn't occur. Don't be shy at all about just telling us kind of, like the old Friday line. Just tell us the facts, lay those out based on what you said you're going to do, and tell us again exactly what you found. More importantly, this should be as I said, grab the neck at the beginning. This should be the one that validates me being interested in reading the abstract. I should be understand at this point that says, wow, yeah, they said they were going to prove this. Their approach looked pretty good, and look, here's they had some pretty strong data, but it really did prove 2 of the 3 points that they set out to accomplish. A worthy paper and somebody that I want at WEFTEC to make a presentation. Next up, we have some examples. And so there's a couple different examples. I think you're just going to kind of maybe pull up on a PDF, and then I think Lauren's just going to kind of walk through them. This one, real quickly, is an excellent format. You can see how these problem sets, it's broken out into sections, goals and objectives. It's laid out perfectly. This is a great abstract, something that everybody should emulate. Although I'd have to tell you that this is the rare occurrence. A page and a half, it even have references. Very, very strong graphs, pictures. These are the things that make a super abstract. This abstract really is of quality that we would look for in the annual conference from a technical provider, not necessarily from an equipment supplier. The next abstract that Lauren's going to show you, immediately no topic headings, right? But if you really look at it, if you read this, this also is a very good abstract. The beginning really shows all the background, the first big paragraph. Down lower, there's a great hypothesis and theory that this person has laid out in that section. On the next page, it goes into a fair amount of detail. He's got a PFD. They got some data. Goes into a fair amount of specific. The next page, graphs, and a real interesting table that really summarizes his conclusions. In other words, this conclusion for this paper is not a paragraph, it's a table. Interesting way to do it, much easier for you guys maybe to put a table together than a paragraph. This paper, they look very, very different, but they're both excellent papers. So don't worry too much about the format. It really is the content. It really is the content that we're looking for. I think the last slide is those references that I mentioned to you before about on the website. There are 2, on the net meeting, there's 2 references, one for Exhibitor Success Center and the other one, excuse me, is for the technical program call for abstracts, which, as Susan said, is fast approaching. We have about 3 weeks, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks to get those in, and she has it up on the screen right now. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure we're set up for that, Susan or Lauren, but I hope now you have a better feel for how to put an abstract together. Most importantly, that it's not hard, that you understand it isn't hard, that answering a few questions can really lead to a powerful hypothesis and problem solving. I'm always amazed at WEFTEC. The expo is almost overwhelming in size, and I often think that the content is so overlooked. There's so much knowledge out on that floor that is never conveyed because you just can't hit each booth. The ability for you folks to write abstracts on cutting-edge technology and stuff you've learned, I think, will add invaluably to not only to the expo and your companies, but also the technical program that I've been, as Susan said, been involved with for a bunch of years. And we definitely could use an influx of folks that are actually doing this stuff in the field versus consulting engineers, which oftentimes tell a little bit different story. Important story, but a different story. So with that, I'm going to stop and turn it back over to Lauren or Susan to, I guess, bring it on home.
Sure. Thank you. And we did have one question, and it's about where the location of the slides are. And we will be posting everything. Some of it's already posted on for the exhibitors under the exhibitor resources, under Exhibitor Success Center, which is where all the other webcasts, recorded webcasts are located. We've put the information that Chibi mentioned before, the actual document where the questions and answers that Chibi wrote to help you all, that's already posted on there, as well as those 2 sample abstracts that we showed briefly, and we know they're hard to see on the screen, so we posted them already on that Exhibitor Success Center so you can see them. And then once we get the recording of this webcast, we'll post that as well. So please do make sure you share that with all the other people in your company, because we do want to make you successful, and like Chibi said, we feel like there's a wealth of information out on the exhibit floor, and we want to show more of that in the program and really do the best service we can for our attendees, for all of us. So, and also if you have any questions on any of this, you can email that email at the bottom of that slide you see now, speakers@wef.org, and we have several staff that answer that, and if it's not anything that we can answer, we pass it on to the committee, people like Chibi that can answer it. So please email us if you have any questions. And so far that's the only question we have. If anyone else has any other ones, you're welcome to send it in now, or you can send it to speakers@wef.org and we'll answer it, or we'll ask Chibi to. Okay, well, it looks like that's it. So we thank you all for your time, and thank you, Chibi, for all your great help, and we hope we see lots of exhibitor abstracts. Thank you. All right.
The organizer